Hello there, welcome back to my channel. I wasn't going to do this, but I decided maybe some of you who've been interested in the Total Tarot subscription that I've recently purchased might be curious to see what's come in the next episodes and what I'm thinking about it. I have a few things here, so this is going to be a long one. Get yourselves a cup of tea and sit down and we'll go through a few things. I'm going to do a deck comparison, a couple of deck comparisons, and talk about some of them a little bit as well, just to iron out a few questions that have come about with some of the affectionately termed Dirty Pam comments. So I am going to start with the book because I know that's in frame, and then we will come to the decks. And I know many people have said that they aren't sure about the subscription because of the cost of decks. Here in the UK, this subscription is where this is available from. To get a low Scarabeo deck is usually about £25. So to get a deck with magazines at £16 roughly for 2 episodes, I personally don't have a problem with that, especially as it's something that if I'm looking through the decks that I would like to have anyway. With my subscription, because I'm not purchasing from a shop, because I don't have any shops near me that would stock this, because I live kind of rurally, I got the folder in episode 1. So I will try to remember to link it down below, but there is where I go through parts 1, 2 and 3, which all came together as a subscription, and you can see what came in that. So it has hangers, little coat hangers, if you can see there, that you hang your magazines on, top and bottom. And we got a few extra bits in episode 1 as the launch, to be fair. So it's kind of being called a step-by-step course. For beginners, I think it's probably perfect. It goes through the cards, there's lovely colour pictures, there's cheat sheets and things in here. If you're a more advanced reader, you might not be as impressed with some of the cheat sheets and pull-outs and things. However, I like to look at things as always being a learner and always starting at the beginning. So I quite like this. I think it's a nice thing if somebody wants some help. This just reminds me, you know, when we've kind of advanced a bit too far, we forget where we started. This takes me back to where we started and allows me to give advice in more basic form to the people who are asking me questions about tarot, I suppose, because it's very easy to get caught up in all the other bits that we learn as we go through our journeys. So with episode 1, we got the Golden Art Nouveau Tarot, and I also got the tarot bag in my subscriptions with the first 3. Now, just to say, this Art Nouveau Tarot, you got the major arcana, and then with each magazine that you subscribe to, you get a card as part of the deck, and then you build up the rest of your deck. Now, you can use the major arcana as a deck in its own right if you don't want to subscribe to the entire magazine. This deck is larger than normal, and it's larger than the one that you would get off Low Scarabeo's website. And for comparison of boxes, this would be a standard Low Scarabeo, and you can see there's quite a bit of difference. Hopefully it's coming through. So there's quite a bit of difference on the size. So this is how you get the larger size, which would make this a collector's edition, I think. I'm not aware of any other places that you can buy this at this size at this point in time. But if anyone else is aware, please pop it down in comments so that we can, if we don't want to get the entire magazine subscription, we can go buy the deck if we want the large size. And it comes with the matching tarot cloth. So I'm just keeping those together in there at the moment. And you've got a bit of explanation there with your Art Nouveau, shows the artwork that you get with your major arcana, talks about completing your deck, and then there's some lovely bits of information as well about the Golden Art Nouveau Tarot. I haven't read it, I will admit. I scan read things. I'm not a front to back reader. I scan read and go back to bits when I need to. And what I do like about this is that in each episode you get a card in detail, and this is the study deck, and the study deck also came with the episodes or issues. So I now have a full Radiant Wise Spirit study deck, which is this, as you can see quite clearly, the images here, and this is how they're doing it. So it's because it's the most known artwork, and the artwork is by Pamela Coleman Smith, and that's the simple reason why it's being used as the study deck. We have some other examples of cards that are coming through with the decks, and I just like things like the glossary there. So we're going through like an A to Z of glossary words, what they mean. If you're a fan of Lo Scarabeo, then you know, I'm sure you're going to be very impressed with what you get here. And then here we have the card collections that are going to come through, some of the decks that will be added to the collection, and an explanation of how we're using it all. This one I haven't hung on a hook, I've just stuck it in my book. Then I have part 2. So again, we have a bit more, so explaining the major arcana and also introducing us to the next deck that's coming through. Or one of the next decks that are coming through, sorry. Now we have the Vice Versa Tarot. So we've got some of the cheat sheets there for the Vice Versa Tarot. And visual reference to the Radiant Wise Spirit deck, and completing the deck here. And then we have the next card in the subscription. And the rest, so more glossaries, C to D. And then part 3. So I have gone through these a little bit more in depth in my walkthrough. So if you want to see the pages and what's on each page with more visual reference, then please do go to my first video. So that was everything that came in my first subscription. And we also got the decks in detail with parts 1 to 3. And this is, again, it's like a colour version of the Little White Book. So it goes through talking about the cards, the upright, the reversed, and we have the colour images to refer to. So if you prefer colour images, then you can use these as your books for studying your deck, or if you prefer the Little White Book, then you can just go ahead and use that as well. And you've got part 1 and part 2 there, and then that completes the entire deck for study. The recent one that I've received is parts 4 and 5. So what I've discovered is you pay monthly, so your monthly subscription is for 2 issues. So you get billed for the issues, and then because of postage, it takes about 2 weeks to come through. Then about 2 weeks later, roughly, you get 2 issues together. And what that does is it gives you a complete deck, because you get 1 on each issue. And actually, I quite like that. So I know I'm going to get the full deck and they're not going to run out. And we had the Thelema Tarot, which came with parts 4 and 5. So does a little bit about reading for yourself, pulling your cards for the day. I've had lots of questions about, will this suit advanced readers? As I've said, I probably class myself as a mid to advanced reader, and I think it's great. I do enjoy reading beginners' books all the time, because everyone has their own take on things, and the keywords, you forget sometimes when you're working with tarot and you develop your own keywords, sometimes you forget some of the basics, or they no longer become part of your language, and you might find that your keywords aren't quite working, because as we know, we need to change up our keywords as we're working with the decks, because the cards change meanings for us quite often. So I just like the fact that you get, you know, nudges back to some keywords, and you get to pick the brains of people who've written and talked about tarot for many years. And then I like the fact that you get the glossary with explanations of other words, historical decks, reproductions, reconstructions, or reinterpretations of the great tarot decks of the past. So just an explanation on what that means. Hod, Hebrew word meaning splendor, and numbered 8 on the Kabbalistic tree of life. So it's just things that take you and then can pique your curiosity. So if you wanted to then know about the tree of life, you could go and Google that and look it up. So I now know that part 6 tells me what deck I've got coming next. So that's a really beautiful deck, the Harmonious Tarot. So that'd be quite a nice one to have a little flick through. And then here we have part 5. The pre-Raphaelite Tarot, those couple of images there, because they're quite busy, remind me of the jack-o'-lantern. But obviously it's not, it's just a... So here we have a bit more on the Thelema Tarot. We have the Harmonious Tarot. I have these books, and I am a lover of Lo Scarabeo decks and productions, and these books are amazing, and I'm feeling like this might become part of this book. I don't have part 1, I have part 2 and 3, and they're 400 to 600 pages per book. They are massive, and they are, as I say, I treat them as reference books. Here we have a Celtic cross, so that's really nice. I think the fact that it introduces spreads, or gets you to maybe use a spread, because obviously if you sit down to read this, you might want to try out what's sat in front of you. And I don't always use Celtic cross, to be perfectly honest with you. It's never been a spread that I gel with, but actually sitting down and doing this at home is a great way to spend, 20 minutes rather than putting on the TV, having a little read and refreshing yourself. So I just, I really am impressed. I am impressed with what comes through with this. Here we have a bit on Arthur Edward Waite. So hopefully we're going to get a bit on Pamela Coleman Smith at some point. And then we have glossary. We're up to M in the glossary. And we have a tarot journal coming. So that will be interesting to see as well. And yeah, so I still have more hooks, and then you can purchase more of these binders if you want to keep them in binders. I'll see, I'm not sure. Once I've filled up the binder, I'll see how I'm doing with these magazines, and whether I want to continue on with binders or if I'll have my own storage system. So that is the quick look through there. Well, she says quick look through 10 minutes later. Now let's come back to the first deck that we received. So we received the Radiant Wise Spirit. Now I should have made notes for this and I haven't. I'm sure I'm going to regret this bit. So these have the rose and lily backs, and these are bordered. They also have the original font, if my understanding is correct. So I think, or I believe, I am led to understand that this is the original font that Pamela Coleman Smith put on the decks. And you can get other decks where it's a bit thicker and aren't the originals. Lo Scarabeo did a Pamela Coleman Smith deck. And if you go to the Hermit's Cave, Simon talks about this and compares all the decks for us. So in 2017, I think it was, he got hold of the Pamela Coleman Smith deck, which was this deck, and it then became out of print. They reproduced a different version of it, but it wasn't in this colourway. It was a very different colourway, and people weren't so enamoured with it. Now, within our community, we have the very lovable Kelly Bear, and Simon does his coffee and catch-ups, or cuppa and catch-ups. Sorry, Simon, if I've just really got that back to front. And in there, in one of the chats 4 or 5 years ago, Kelly Bear referred to this version of the Pamela Coleman Smith deck as the Dirty Pam, because it's got this kind of aged, antiqued look to it. And that is where the Dirty Pam term comes from. I don't know if it's worldwide. I do know that people in America are aware of it because they join the catch-ups as well. But that is where that name comes from. So if anyone's curious, it's always nice to know your facts. And as for the rest of this, I will say go to Simon's video and look it up, because he is a true Pamela Coleman Smith lover, and the history that he can't tell you about, I mean, it's not even worth knowing, basically. So he is amazing. Because I've never been a huge Pamela Coleman Smith RWS lover, I really haven't kind of like stepped into what's going on with the images and the history behind it. I mean, obviously I know who the designers are, but that's kind of where my knowledge stops, I'm afraid. So the quality of the decks from a Lo Scarabeo standard deck, I think, to me, these two feel about the same. This is the Visconti Sforza, which I will be able to compare because it looks like it comes through with a subscription at some point. So I'll actually have a subscription version to compare to one that I already own. Marjorie's come to have a little play with me. So that was just a, and for size, 0.5 millimetre in it. So what she's saying is, put the camera away and come and play with me, please. So yeah, I thought that might be interesting to do. The other deck that you might have all keenly spied on my shelf, let's just do that later, is this one. So I've owned this for a couple of years, and I bought it because I really liked it. I really liked the colourway. Having not been a big fan of these, I decided that the colourway was more my thing. Now this deck is the same deck. It's the Radiant Wise Spirit, as it's now being called. But this one's borderless, and the backs, the rose and lilies, are different. So this is the same back as the one on the out of print Pamela Coleman Smith, or Dirty Pam. And this one is the current print that's available. There was a reprint of this Pamela Coleman Smith, and on the reprint they enlarged the backs again. So it was bordered, but it had that size backs, I think, or maybe slightly smaller in between size, but it had a larger print. So these have been compared to the 2017 Pamela Coleman Smith deck from Lo Scarabeo, and basically 2 different members of the tarot community said that they couldn't find any difference between them at all, really. Completely, virtually identical. So what's going to be the easiest way of doing this? These are thicker, as you can see, the piles are bigger. So this deck is much bigger than this one. It's much stiffer and far more glossy than the Radiant Wise that came with the subscription, or I'm going to call it the Dirty Pam. And what else? I'm just going to, it's probably easier, isn't it, if I, here we go. So we just find the, so we can see the font is slightly different on these, and other than that it's basically the same image, it's just enlarged in here, and the borders are missing, but the colourway is identical. So that is the Radiant Wise from Lo Scarabeo that comes in a box, and the only other thing to mention with this is it comes with a book. So it comes with a big book which has, I think it's got other languages in it. Yeah. So it does have a few other languages. And it's got a bit more description with the wording than the little white books have. This one didn't come with the little white book. So, whereas the original Lo Scarabeo decks did. And obviously this one comes in a nice box with a lid. And there is a mini version of this one, which is actually a mini version of that. It looks like this, but it's actually this one in miniature with the borders and the rose and lilies on the back. Okay, so I hope that's helped with some of that. Next though, we have the Thelema Tarot. So again, we have the backs. This is very standard Lo Scarabeo cardstock. This feels like, I don't have them here. Which one's the Dark Grimoire? Feels, yeah, feels a bit like the Dark Grimoire. Maybe, actually, maybe even slightly thicker than the Twilight Tarot, actually. And it's got a nice colourway. But what I'll do is I will do a separate walkthrough of these cards at another point. I just wanted to catch up with you all, let you know what I was thinking. And at this point, I will continue to subscribe to this collection. I don't have any issues with it at all. I really, really enjoy it personally for me. And, you know, sometimes that mindless picking up something you already know and reading through it, it relaxes me. It's a form of relaxation for me sometimes. But I do get why some people might not want to get this. As I've said before, if you're not worried about collecting the entire gigantic Art Nouveau, you can dip in and out of the subscription, and you can cancel subscriptions for the ones that you don't want, which was something I thought of doing, but then I realised I'm not going to get all the cards to this deck. So it was, do I want the whole deck? It's a beautiful deck, and the Total Tarot subscription is basically a piece of history, or do I just buy a smaller version of that and be done with it? It's only £16 a month. Now, £16 a month is a lot of money to some people, but for myself, that £16 a month is, you know, part of my otherwise what could have been wasted on cups of tea, coffee, or lunch at work. So I changed things around, adjusted my budgets, and I make my packed lunch. I take a flask of tea with me. So there's just things that I've done which make this something that I'll continue to do for a little while longer. But yeah, if you want to see what comes in the next issues, which hopefully won't be far away now, because I have had parts 4 and 5 for a while. I think I've had them maybe for 2 weeks. I'm just behind. I wasn't going to do a regular catch up on it because I wasn't sure if people would want to know about it or not. But if you do want to see it more in depth and talked about on a regular basis, again, you know, say something in comments and then I can do that. Maybe you want to see the flip through of the deck with the book as well. So we can always do that for you. Anyway, there we go. So that's my Total Tarot subscription update with parts 4 and 5. I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.